Hey, what's up, everyone? It is Sunday, June 4th. It's about 10:30 in the morning right now. Just got done getting some breakfast, ran a couple of errands. Now I'm going to go spend some time by the pool and relax a little bit. And then I'm going to go head to South Point and we're going to get in a session today. We're going to play some pokers. So I'm bringing you all with today. We're going to vlog. Couple of updates. I've played 3 sessions since the last vlog. The first one I won $95. The second one I walked out with $120. And the third session I broke even. So we won back about $220 of what we lost over the last 2 vlogs. So the downswing is still in effect as far as the vlog is concerned, but I have broken the downswing in the last few sessions. So back in the positive, back at seeing some wins, and I'm excited to hopefully put a win up today for the vlog. So that's the plan. Gonna relax by the pool for a bit, then I'm gonna head over to South Point. I'll see you at South Point. First hand of the night, and we look down at a good one, the number one, the Pocket Rockets. We raise this up to $15 under the gun, and we end up getting one caller in middle position 1. So we are going heads up to a flop, and the flop is pretty good for us. It comes down ace, jack, 6, all clubs. When we flop top set here on a monotone board, my first thought process is to slow play in this spot and check over to the caller. But when you start to think a little bit deeper about what cards the middle position player is calling with here, he's going to have a lot of Broadway cards in his hand, things like King Queen, possibly King Jack suited, Queen 10. So I think there's merit to just going ahead and firing a C-bet and trying to get calls from Broadway holdings that have a single club in their hand. So that's what we do. We go ahead and fire out a continuation bet of $15 here. The middle position player says, I can't call you with all those clubs, and he turns over Queen 10 of hearts, so we take down this pot. Oh my God. This hand gets a little spicy. We look down at 9, 8 of clubs in the cutoff. It folds to us. We go ahead and open this to $10. Standard open for us. The small blind calls the $10. The big blind decides this is not enough and puts in a 3-bet to 25. Pretty small 3-bet. We decide the best play here is just to go ahead and call. Small blind calls as well. And we end up going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes down jack, 6, 9, rainbow. So we flop middle pair here with a backdoor flush draw. Small blind decides to check. Big blind decides to put in a continuation bet here. I would expect him to do this with his entire 3-betting range, both value and bluffs. He makes it $25. I'm just going to call the $25 here. I think we could see some good turn cards here that will allow us to steal this pot on future streets. Small blind calls as well, and we see the 4 of hearts come off here on the turn. This isn't particularly the best card for us to try to make some moves. So when it checks to me, I go ahead and check, and it checks around here on the turn. Now, the river is where things get interesting. The river peels off the 8 of hearts. The small blind checks, and now the big blind decides to jam his entire stack in here on this river card. Now, when he jams here on the river, I'm thinking, what are the most obvious bluffs that he would have in this situation? Ace king suited, ace queen suited seem like the most obvious candidates. Would he be doing this with a hand like pocket aces, queens, kings? Most certainly for value, he would be doing it with pocket jacks. He could be overvaluing some of those premium holdings. But the reality is that I feel like when players make this move, they almost certainly have the goods. I almost always see people getting caught on the wrong side of this type of play. So with all of that in mind, and the fact that we're just getting about 1.5 to 1 here on a call, I just don't think our 2 pair is going to be good here often enough to make this a profitable call for us. So I follow the math in this particular example. I don't know much about the player, so I reluctantly go ahead and let my 2 pair go on the river. Small blind folds as well. Unfortunately, the big blind did not show, so we will never know what he had, but we lose this pot. This next one is a fun one. We look down at the pocket aces again in early position. As always, we raise this up. We make it a little bit larger because we've got some very sticky players that sat down at the table. We make it 15. Player in middle position 1 just decides to open rip, and we snap call when it folds back to us. He turns over ace of spades, 7 of clubs. Bad timing on his part. Board runs out clean for us, so we end up taking this hand down with our pocket aces. Always a welcome sight to see someone just open jam their entire stack into your raise when you've got the goods. All right, on to the next hand. We are in early position again under the gun. We look down at ace-jack offsuit. This is going to be a standard open for us. I make it $8 here to go, and we end up getting 2 callers, the cutoff calls and the big blind calls. So we are going 3 ways to the flop. Flop comes down ace, deuce, 3 with 2 hearts. Pretty decent flop for our early position range. So I go ahead and fire out a $13 continuation bet here. Cutoff folds. The big blind decides to put in the call, so we're going heads up to a turn. Turn is the 4 of spades. Big blind checks. I decide to check here and exercise a little pot control. I'm going to be calling most non-heart rivers here in this spot, so when the 7 of diamonds hits on the river and the big blind puts out a very fast bet of $30, I pretty much just snap call him here. He turns over ace-jack. I show ace-jack, and we end up chopping this pot. Ace-10 of diamonds and the hijack. This is definitely good enough for an open. We make it $8 to go. We get 1 caller, the small blind, who is the same opponent we were up against earlier when we rivered 2 pair and he open jammed the river. We ended up folding. He has shown some propensity to bluff here, so starting to think we should have called in that spot. But this hand, we go to the flop heads up. We see ace, 10, 8, 2 clubs, straight draws, flush draws, very dynamic board. When he checks to us, I want to get some money in the pot here. I make it $15, and he min clicks it back and raises us to 30. I don't know what this means. It could be a draw of some kind. It could be a pure bluff. I have no idea at this point, but I want to keep ranges wide and let him bluff. So I just call. We see the 6 of spades on the turn. Now he checks to us, and I decide to check back here. I think that was a mistake. We should be betting. 3 of diamonds on the river, and now the small blind is putting together a wager. We're waiting to see what it's going to be. I think we're calling here 100% of the time. He makes it $50 here on the river, and we go ahead and snap call, and he says, you're good. So we go ahead and show our 2 pair, and we take this pot down. Jack 10 offsuit here. We go ahead and decide to raise this up. We got some limpers, and I make it $10 to go. We end up getting 4 callers going to the flop here. I don't have enough space for all that graphic, so just know that the big blind ends up being the main opponent here that we're battling. We see a 9 deuce 5 rainbow flop, ends up checking around here on the flop, and the queen of hearts peels off on the turn. So we turn an open-ended straight draw here. When the big blind decides to fire out here for $25, I think about my options, and I want to see if we can't win this here right on the turn. I want to recognize my equity. I want to win with Jack High. So I make it $60 to go here. Put in the raise, folds around to the big blind, who thinks about his options and ultimately decides to fold. He says something interesting here after he folds. I'll let the audio play and see if you can hear it.
Can't beat your ace queen.
Hey, Jack 10. All right, mid-session update time. We've been playing for about 3 hours. Currently up about $130. Pretty decent table, pretty good action. Pretty happy with the way I'm currently playing. Getting a little bit more aggressive in certain spots, raising when I turn equity, raising when I pick up premium holdings. So yeah, things are going pretty well so far this session. I think we're gonna play for maybe another 2 or 3 hours and then call it a day. Wanna try to be out of here at a reasonable hour, get some dinner, get some things wrapped up before the week begins. So yeah, we'll probably play for another few hours and I will update you at the end. Nothing too crazy here in this hand. We're in middle position with ace-10 of clubs. We raise it up to $10. We end up getting 2 callers, so we're gonna go 3 ways to a flop. I often wonder in spots like this if there's merit to always looking to go for a check raise or trying to check this around and slow play and find value on later streets. We flop the nut flush draw, 4, 6, 7, 2 clubs. I continuation bet and both opponents quickly fold, so we end up winning this pot. This is how a majority of my hands end up playing out, so I'm always curious if there's ways to get more value in spots like this. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Would love to hear your opinion. There are 2 ways to play this hand. Both of them are the wrong way. We pick up the pocket jacks, the fish hooks, on the button, raise it up to $10. New player at the table in the small blind puts in the call. We see a flop of queen 10-6 with 2 diamonds. Small blind checks. We decide to go ahead and check this back on the flop, and we see the beautiful jack of spades on the turn. We put in a delayed continuation bet here after it's checked to us, and the small blind puts in the call. So we're going to the river, which is the 7 of hearts. He checks again. We fire out 25, and he quickly folds. So we do play this one pretty accurately, and we end up winning this $73 pot. All right, this fold is a live read fold. It's a bit nitty. If you're triggered by nitty folds, skip this hand. We have king jack of spades in the big blind. A new player in the hijack seat raises it up to $10. Small blind calls, and we put in the call here as well. So we're going 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes down pretty good for our exact hand. King, deuce, 3. We have a backdoor flush draw. We have top pair with a decent kicker. Check it over to the original raiser, who decides to put in a continuation bet, same as the pre-flop bet, $10. The small blind thinks for quite a while before deciding to just let his cards go. I think I could be check raising here with some frequency. I think check calling is also completely fine. We can keep ranges wide and keep potential bluffs in. So I decide to just go ahead and put in the call in this particular scenario. I flick in the $10 and we end up going to a turn here, which is the 4 of hearts. Now this is where this hand gets kind of interesting. The hijack immediately bets out of turn here. He puts in a $25 bet. I ask the dealer, does the bet stand? The dealer says yes. If you check, the bet stands. I go ahead and check here, and the $25 bet that the hijack put in is still in play. And when he made this particular play out of turn, he just seemed very, very excited about his particular hand and to have a customer. I told him it cost him a little bit of money, and I went ahead and folded. I'm not sure if it was the best fold, but at the time, my read just told me that he just was very happy with his particular hand. All right, last hand of the night. This is the big one, the one we've all been waiting for. 10-9 of diamonds, under the gun. I'm going to be raising some of these suited connectors here in early position, balance out our premium holdings to give us better board coverage, etc., etc. So I bet $10 here. We get 2 callers and end up going 3 ways to a flop, and the flop comes down pretty good for our exact hand. It's Jack 10 8 with 2 spades. Now I decide to go ahead and fire out a continuation bet here, and I think this might be a mistake. I think we're going to get raised a lot in this particular flop. There's going to be a lot of spade draws, a lot of straight draws, a lot of 2-pair holdings, potentially sets that are going to be raising when we see bet here. So I think the better play is just to check my range here and allow the other players to fire out with some of their semi-bluffs and some of their made hands. So I think check call is probably the better line on this particular board. So I do decide to put in a $20 continuation bet here. The middle position player min clicks this back to $40. He had been doing this min click raise all night long. Mostly from what I've seen, it's been bluffs. And the small blind cold calls the min click bet. I put in the call as well. Now I think there's merit to re-raising here on the flop. I think we may make a mistake when we just call here and not recognize our equity and try to protect against flush draws. So I think just calling here on the flop may have been an error. I think I could reopen the action here with a fair amount of frequency and ultimately look to isolate the middle position player and try to get heads up. I would expect him to be on a fair amount of straight draws. He certainly is going to have some flush draws in his range as well, but he can also have hands like 2-pair, and I think we do fairly well against those holdings. As played, we do call, and we see the queen of diamonds on the turn. Checks around on the turn. All right, we've got all the outs in the world. King of diamonds, 8 of diamonds will give us the straight flush. Any diamond will give us the flush, and we already have a straight. Can we hit it? Give me a like. Give me a subscribe. Let's see if we can connect on the river, guys. All right, can we get some run good? Are we going to connect on the river? No, it is the 6 of spades. We miss. And now the small blind bets $65. This just screams value. I think he's got a flush here all day long. I don't think I can call here with my straight with a player behind us who has yet to act. So I just go ahead and reluctantly let my cards go. The middle position player does call, and we can see that we were not faring too good there on the river. All right, so we are done. We just cashed out. 7 o'clock at night, getting ready to go get some dinner, and then I'm gonna call it a night. We ended up cashing out for $371. In the game for $300, out for $371. That is a profit of $71, which is a win in my book. A win is a win. So that is it. That is episode 6. If you like the vlog, please do hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the notification bell. Please share this with your family, friends, co-workers, and anyone who likes poker-related content. I'll see you next time.